So the latest World Air Pollution rankings are now out. The top three most polluted nations are Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Tajikistan. India is for the first time out of the top five, with its overall pollution national average PM 2.5 dipping slightly by 3%. But the world's most polluted capital remains New Delhi for the 7 out of the last 8 years of the IQAir report. The world's most polluted place is Loni, which borders Delhi on the northeast. And joining me now is the global CEO of IQAir, Frank Hams. If I may begin by asking you first on this region, South Asia, in the latest IQAir rankings, India continues to dominate for the fifth consecutive year, the top 100 rankings. It has over two-thirds of the cities, 66 in the latest report. What is your assessment of the data, the gaps, and the policy responses? And do you see any silver linings?
Yeah, I think in one respect, India is part of is a victim of its support of its success in monitoring, right? India is actually one of the better monitored countries on the on the planet. And so where you measure, you will find things, right? And I think India is now discovering that air pollution is a very widely distributed problem in many regions of India. And the more you measure, the more you will find. So I think this is not surprising. And many other parts of the world will catch up with this. And this is maybe one of the reasons too that India will be maybe falling in the listing as more and more countries come to it, especially from Africa and maybe even some other regions in the world where monitoring so far has not been done.
In fact, if you compare this to Pakistan, the number of cities being monitored in this latest report has more than doubled, I think, to 18, and most of them, 15, are in the top 100. And that's very similar to monitoring in India when your IQ Air report began, I think, in 2018. 21 cities monitored, 15 in the top 100. The question I want to ask is, in your experience, is this an incentive for local authorities to monitor more, or is there a reluctance that you find in your experience that they don't want a poor showing?
Yeah. I would say there's two types of people on this planet. They're the people who want to see air pollution, want to find air pollution and deal with air pollution. These tend to be more on the engineering side or the people who are suffering from it. You know, if you have a mother with a child with asthma, she wants to do something about that. In politics, you have both. We have the people who'd like to close their eyes and say we got bigger problems than air pollution, and you have the people who are attacking air pollution, who see if we measure it, we can improve it. Good example there. We recently together were in Bangkok, and the governor of Bangkok, an engineer by training, is someone who 4 years ago started and said we have to create awareness about this problem because we have to take along our population on this journey to improve air quality in our city. And for them, it was a huge problem and a huge risk because Bangkok is one of those tourist cities around the world, right? Where if air pollution exists, it's not really attractive for that city. So I think the lesson to learn there is let's be courageous. Let's find out what's wrong in our cities, and then let's engage with one another to find solutions.
Right. In fact, in Bangkok, there was a lot of talk about citizen science and citizens monitoring the ambient air pollution in their area. As somebody who's been involved in this for many, many years, what would your advice be to communities, to neighborhoods? What should they monitor? How should they monitor? And what should be the response? What should they do with that data?
Right? You don't need to monitor a lot of things to make sense of your air. Typically, monitoring PM 2.5 with a low cost sensors really enough because the quality of those sensors has become so good that they are actually comparable in terms of their result that they're showing with some of the much more expensive equipment that scientists and governments are using. So rather than monitor many things, PM 2.5 should be the one thing. That's your dominant pollutant in terms of AQI anyways, in 95% of cases. And that will give the communities a lot of bang for the buck in terms of putting these monitors up. And then we think that you can barely do anything wrong with putting these monitors up because governments have to make hard choices where they put their monitoring equipment because it's so expensive. And sometimes they miss out on really valuable information because they're trying to place them into areas where you do not have a specific pollutant coming from a specific source. But once you have a low cost sensor, you can start monitoring the impact of local traffic, the impact of a specific industry, and you can really do much more than that. And if you have hundreds of these sensors, they actually will even out even on certain placement artifacts that you have. And Bangkok, for example, is one of the best monitored cities on earth because the government was very open to the community contributing this data. The government has invited people to put these sensors up, and the government is actually publishing that sensor data on their own website now next to the government regulatory monitors. And this has increased trust in the government's data because now you can actually see that the government's data and the local sensor data is not that much different.
In some parts of the world, like in India, there has been a pushback on data, like from IQAir and a couple of other sources, that these are foreign sources. The Environment Ministry in India had said that there's no official country-wise pollution ranking carried out worldwide, which is technically true. And questions are also raised from time to time on low-cost sensors, but like you pointed out, they have become very reliable. How reliable is your data? What would be your response to this criticism or this questioning?
The data that we have is very comprehensive. It's a much bigger data set than the governments have. Even governments often don't have all the data because government data is distributed among local, regional, and state responsibilities. So IQAir collects all the available data from all the governments, regional and city governments, as well as state governments. And we combine that data with reliable low-cost sensor data. So we ingest in real time data from about 50,000 real-time sensors and air quality monitoring stations, but we only publish data from about 33,000 stations in real time because the rest of it we don't deem to be reliable. So we can see sensors that don't make sense because they're aging, because certain things don't make sense in the terms of the patterns of that data. And there's a lot of data cleaning going on in the background. We're using increasingly AI, obviously, to also see what patterns come there. But even government sensors don't read correctly all the time when they're published in real time. And so we have to be aware there will be some errors in the data, but the more data you have, the less relevant it is actually when one or two sensors in a city maybe not showing as high of an accuracy as they should be.
Right. There are many areas in West Asia and Africa which don't have any monitoring or which have very little monitoring compared to the size of the geography and the population. And in fact, air pollution monitoring has also increased in Iran. Staying with Iran at the moment, what is the effect that you're seeing of war on air pollution?
We've actually seen, it's a quite sad thing when you can see that we've actually first seen the impact of war on air pollution in Ukraine. We had actually, when the war started there, a lot of people who looked at our app just to understand where there might be impact from strikes, because strikes basically create this plume of air pollution. We've seen this in Israel recently. I think a couple of days ago, we actually saw a very quick spike on the government sensors there, and so we're really able to see certain things. Yeah, the more density you have, you will actually see these effects, and you will see small fires, you will see small incidents. We're seeing that sensors could be used to enforce non-crop burning certification programs, right? Because you can actually place them hyper locally. Yeah, so that hyper local nature of the sensors really allows us to see a lot of things that might be causing air pollution. And in Tehran, we currently don't have any data, but we usually have data from embassies putting up sensors out there. And but now currently that data is down. We hope it will come up very soon again.
having a bit of a blind spot. There's a lot of interest in IQ Air over here and in many parts of the world. We heard many panelists in Bangkok talking about it and how important such data is. What are your India-specific plans, if you can share those?
Yeah, I think India is a country that is huge, right? We don't fully understand it. Being based in Switzerland, we try to visit. I'm currently in Vietnam, and we're really engaging much more now with governments, with universities and researchers, as this area has become really the center of public attention in many countries. And we think this is a good thing. I mean, ultimately, the people decide where government spends money, and I think if air pollution goes from place number 20 on people's priority list of what they would like from their government to do to facilitate improvements, and it goes up to number 5 or number 6, that will be a good thing, and we want to support that. So we will be more active in India in the future to make sure that we can engage with the stakeholders, we can learn. It's fascinating how and a thing that you would think is very similar around the world, air quality, air pollution, um, is handled differently in different countries, how the priorities are different, and how people are differently even um, um, using certain, how they're actually noticing air pollution in different ways, right? Some places around the world, people don't even know that there's air pollution, right? They just say it's haze, it's the weather, right? And so the awareness problem comes once you start measuring and ultimately give people the opportunity to participate. And I think that's one of my messages to governments. Let people participate. The biggest problem on this planet is apathy, right? Where you have people not caring about something that makes a big difference in their own lives or other people's lives. And so I think this participatory science aspect that now is coming, that is allowing citizens to join governments in drawing attention to something and seeing also the progress together. That's the one other thing that is important. I think it's a huge opportunity because the changes that we will need to make in order to improve air quality are not only government changes. These are changes by the entire population. We're all responsible for air pollution. We use transport. We want to stay home and enjoy the electricity that's generated somewhere. So a lot of things we are together responsible for, and as long as we can understand that, we can make those sacrifices necessary to improve air quality.
Frank, thanks so much for joining us and explaining the report and also what the bigger picture looks like on air pollution across the globe.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chetan.